AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding after she completely disrespected my boundaries and my home. So, this is going to be long because the story has a lot of layers, but I'll try to make it as clear as possible. I, 32F, have a sister, Lily, 28F. We were never super close, mostly because our personalities clash hard. She's very dramatic and controlling, while I'm more laid back and private. Our parents have always been a bit enablers toward her, which has caused a lot of tension between us over the years. That being said, I still love her, but I also have a hard limit when it comes to my personal space and mental energy. A few months ago, Lily got engaged to her fiancé, Mark. She immediately started talking about having the wedding at my house. At first, I thought she was joking, but then she started sending messages about floor plans and guest arrangements like it was a done deal. I reminded her multiple times that my house is small, I live alone, and it's not equipped for hosting large events. She brushed it off and said it would be cozy and that I shouldn't worry. I finally told her directly that it's not happening, and I offered to help in other ways, like helping with decorations, invitations, or planning. But she insisted that it had to be at my house because she didn't want to pay a venue fee and everyone loves my house anyway. I explained that hosting a wedding involves a lot more than just space. It's cleaning, organizing, and basically putting my life on hold for days. But she kept arguing that it would be fun and intimate, and that will make it work. After refusing multiple times, I thought it would be enough, but then she started showing up unannounced with friends to see how we could fit everything. I told her I wasn't comfortable with strangers in my house and that she needed to respect my decision. She got really defensive, saying I was being selfish and ruining her special day. I tried reasoning with her, but she refused to back down. Things escalated when she started telling mutual friends that I was refusing to help with her wedding at all and that I was being ungrateful. Some friends reached out asking if I was okay, and I had to explain the situation from my side. I never wanted to humiliate her or cause drama, but she kept portraying me as the villain. Last month, she came over with her fiancé and a couple of her closest friends, and she literally sat in my living room with a measuring tape, measuring my furniture and talking about where the tables and chairs would go. I calmly told her that she was overstepping and that I had already told her multiple times that I would not host the wedding. She started crying and accused me of being the worst sister ever and never supporting her dreams. I told her I support her in every way that doesn't involve violating my personal boundaries or turning my home into a wedding venue. She left angry, and I haven't spoken to her since. A week later, she posted on social media about having to find another venue and subtly hinted that I was being difficult. My parents called me asking why I was being so harsh, and I explained everything in detail. My mom said I should compromise a little because it's my sister's wedding, but my dad sided with me, saying I shouldn't be forced into hosting if it's truly uncomfortable for me. Here's where I might be the asshole. A couple of friends who know both sides have told me that maybe I could have just allowed her to host a very small ceremony or rehearsal dinner at my house instead of outright refusing. They say it would have been a nice gesture and that my sister might have felt less hurt. I honestly thought that even a small event would be stressful and disruptive. I also feel like giving in just because she guilt-tripped me wouldn't be fair. I've been called selfish by multiple family members, and even some distant relatives have made comments on social media about me not supporting my sister. I feel awful because I don't want to be the villain in her wedding story, but I also don't think I should sacrifice my home and peace of mind just because she insists. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding and setting strict boundaries even though it has upset her and our family. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior toward my kids. I, 35F, have 2 kids, ages 7 and 9. My sister, Claire, 32F, has always been very close to me and my kids. We grew up together and shared a lot of family traditions. So when she got engaged last year, I was genuinely happy for her. I have always tried to be supportive and present in her life, especially since our parents live across the country and we've always been each other's main family. Claire got engaged to Mark, 36M, who I met briefly a few times and didn't think much of initially. At first, I tried to be neutral and polite because I wanted to give him a chance. But soon after the engagement, I started noticing things about him that made me uncomfortable. Mark is extremely controlling and has a very short temper. Early on, he made comments about my parenting style. For example, when my kids spilled juice during a play day at Claire's apartment, he immediately snapped at them, saying things like, "Are you this messy at home too?" in a way that made my kids tear up. Claire laughed it off and said I was being sensitive. I didn't say much at the time, but I felt embarrassed and upset. As the months went by, the behavior escalated. During another visit, my daughter was coloring at the table, and Mark loudly said, "Why are you drawing like that? You're going to ruin everything if you don't pay attention." My son tried to defend his sister, and Mark shouted at him as well, calling him annoying. Both kids were crying, and Claire again brushed it off, saying I was overreacting and that he's just joking around. I tried to talk to Claire privately about it, explaining that I didn't think it was appropriate to speak to children that way, especially kids I care for. She insisted I was being dramatic and that Mark is just strict. Things came to a head when Claire asked me to bring the kids to a wedding planning event at a hotel. I brought them, and Mark immediately started criticizing my parenting choices in front of other family members. He made a comment about my daughter's outfit, saying she looks like a slob, and told my son he should know better than to ask questions all the time. My kids were humiliated, and other family members looked uncomfortable. Claire again defended him, saying that it's his way of teaching kids discipline and that I should let it slide. I left early with my children, feeling humiliated and angry. After that, I decided to start distancing myself from the wedding planning and from Mark. I told Claire I would attend the wedding, but I would not bring the kids if Mark was going to be there. She was upset and told me that I was being unreasonable and that it's her day and I should be happy for her. I tried to explain that I love her and that I want to be there, but I cannot subject my children to emotional harm just to avoid upsetting her fiancé. She accused me of trying to control her wedding and of picking fights with her. Over the past few weeks, she sent me increasingly tense messages, asking if I was attending, and when I said I would only attend without the kids, she said that she doesn't want anyone who isn't fully committed there, and that I was choosing my kids over her. This felt like a cruel guilt trip to me, because I feel like protecting my children's emotional safety should come first. I also suggested a compromise, such as having the kids stay with a babysitter at the hotel, but she said that was ridiculous, and they're part of the family. They should be here. I am genuinely torn. On one hand, I don't want to miss my sister's wedding, and I want to maintain our relationship. On the other hand, I am not willing to let my kids be spoken to in ways that make them cry or feel demeaned. I feel like Claire is choosing her fiancé over her family, and it hurts. I've also tried to talk to other family members about Mark's behavior, and some of them have said they noticed it too, but others say I am overreacting. Now I've basically told Claire that I will attend the wedding if Mark apologizes to my kids and commits to being respectful toward them during the event. Claire has responded angrily, saying I'm dictating terms and that I'm trying to ruin her day. She's also made comments about me being difficult and that she doesn't want to deal with this drama during the wedding. I feel like I'm being put in an impossible position. If I go, my kids could be humiliated and cry in front of family. If I don't go, my sister might feel abandoned and resent me. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding unless Mark treats my kids respectfully? Or am I justified in protecting them even if it risks my relationship with my sister? AITA for refusing to let my sister plan my wedding after she completely ruined my engagement party? So I, 28F, recently got engaged to my fiancé, Mark, 30M, and I've been excitedly planning the wedding. I have an older sister, Rachel, 32F, who has always been very controlling when it comes to family events. She's married with 2 kids, and she has a very strong vision for everything, whether it's family dinners, holidays, or parties. Growing up, I often felt like I was living in her shadow, and although I've tried to have a good relationship with her, it has always been a little tense. When Mark proposed, I was ecstatic, of course, and immediately started thinking about wedding plans. My parents were thrilled, and I decided to host a small engagement party to celebrate with close family and friends. I wanted it to be simple, intimate, and cozy, with a few decorations, snacks, and drinks at a local venue. I carefully made the guest list and sent out invitations, making sure to keep it under 40 people, because I really wanted something manageable. I asked Rachel if she wanted to help me with anything for the party. I thought maybe she could help me pick decorations or organize a few small things, since she's always been a planner type in the family. I tried to make it clear that I wanted to make the decisions, but she insisted that she had experience with parties and that I should let her take the lead just this once. I was hesitant, but I wanted her to feel included, so I reluctantly agreed to let her handle the decorations and the catering. The day of the party was a disaster. Rachel completely ignored my plans and replaced nearly everything I had chosen. She booked a caterer I had never even heard of, changed the guest list without telling me, including inviting distant relatives I didn't want there, and bought decorations that were completely different from the aesthetic I had envisioned. She even set up a family photo wall with embarrassing childhood pictures of me, which included some extremely awkward teenage photos that I had explicitly told her were off limits. On top of that, she brought her friends and their kids, turning what was supposed to be a small, intimate gathering into a chaotic, overcrowded event. During the party, I tried to be polite and smile, but I was mortified. Several of my friends noticed that the party wasn't what I had planned, and a few even commented on how over the top it was. Mark was frustrated but tried to be supportive, telling me that at least everyone was having fun. By the end of the night, I felt completely drained and upset. When I confronted Rachel privately, she told me I was being ungrateful and that she was just helping make it special. She claimed I didn't appreciate her effort and that if I had trusted her more, the party would have been amazing. After that, I decided I could not let Rachel have any control over the wedding. I told her that I would handle all of the planning myself, and that she could contribute in very limited ways, like helping with small things that didn't affect the overall vision. She blew up, accusing me of being selfish, not trusting family, and holding a grudge over nothing. She has since been sending passive-aggressive texts and making comments in family group chats about how she used to be the best wedding planner in the family, and how I don't know how to make anything fun. My parents are upset with me too, saying that I should let her help since she wants to be involved, and that I'm being too harsh. My friends are fully on my side, telling me that I need to have the wedding I want, and that Rachel crossed a line at the engagement party. I feel like I'm being completely reasonable, but I also feel guilty because Rachel is my sister, and I don't want her to feel excluded. At the same time, I can't shake the feeling that if I let her take any major role in the wedding, it will turn into another disaster. I've made it clear that I want her involved in ways that don't affect the overall plan, but she acts like I'm cutting her out entirely. So, Reddit, am I the asshole for refusing to let my sister plan my wedding after she ruined my engagement party? Or should I give her another chance? AITA for refusing to lend my apartment to my cousin for an emergency weekend and causing a family feud? I, 28F, live in a moderately sized city and rent a one-bedroom apartment that I absolutely adore. It's a cozy space, and I've spent years making it feel like home. I work from home, so my space is incredibly important to my mental health and daily routine. I've always tried to be generous with my family, but I also have boundaries, and this situation has really tested them. So here's what happened. My cousin, let's call her Mia, 30F, reached out to me last week in a panic. She lives about 3 hours away and works in a high-pressure job. According to her, she got into a massive argument with her boyfriend, and he apparently locked her out of their apartment for the weekend. Mia doesn't have close friends in her city, and she was desperate for a place to stay. She called me, crying, and asked if she could crash in my apartment for the weekend. Now, my first instinct was to help her. I like Mia, and I can understand why someone might feel panicked in that situation. But I also started thinking about the logistics. I work from home full-time, and my apartment is small. I don't have a guest room, so I'd be giving up my living space entirely for the weekend. My kitchen, my desk, and even my couch would be completely occupied. Also, Mia has a tendency to stay for days longer than intended, It's happened before when she visited my parents, and it always ended with me feeling drained and stressed. When I told her that I wasn't comfortable hosting her for the weekend, she went into full meltdown mode. She said things like, "I can't believe you just let me sleep on the street. And your family. How can you be so heartless?" She tried to guilt me by reminding me of how she's helped me in the past, which is true. She did co-sign for my car loan once when I had a bad credit patch, but that was years ago, and I feel like that doesn't obligate me to give her free housing. I offered some alternatives like suggesting a nearby Airbnb or even a few cheap motels I know of, but she refused to consider them, insisting it wasn't the same as staying with family. When I stood firm, she started texting our extended family, saying I was being completely unreasonable and selfish and turning my back on family in a time of crisis. Soon enough, I got messages from multiple relatives asking why I wouldn't help Mia, and some of them were outright angry at me. My parents called me later that day and said they were disappointed in me, saying, "It's just a weekend. She's your cousin. Why are you making it about your comfort?" I tried explaining that my work and mental health make hosting someone in such a small space extremely difficult, and that it wasn't a question of loving her or not, but they didn't seem to get it. They implied that I should just suck it up for the sake of family, which honestly made me feel resentful. The situation escalated when Mia decided to drive to my city anyway, thinking that if she showed up at my door, I'd let her in. I told her explicitly not to come, that I was serious about needing my space, but she argued that it was an emergency. I eventually had to block her on my phone after a particularly aggressive text where she threatened to involve my parents in trying to force me to let her stay. Since then, family gatherings have become tense. My aunt, who is Mia's mother, gave me the silent treatment at Christmas. Other relatives have made passive-aggressive comments like, "Some people just don't know what family is," or "We never expected this from you." I feel like everyone is piling on, even though I was trying to maintain boundaries in a reasonable way. Here's the thing. I honestly don't regret saying no. Hosting Mia would have caused me immense stress, potentially disrupted my work, and set a precedent for future weekends where she might expect me to bend over backward. But at the same time, I'm starting to question whether I was too harsh or insensitive. Could I have handled it differently? I consider maybe letting her stay, but arranging for her to sleep on the couch, keeping my workspace off limits, and making it clear it was only temporary. But I also know that in past situations, my boundaries were not respected, and I ended up miserable. I'm really torn because I feel like I'm being judged unfairly by my family for prioritizing my own mental health and space. On the other hand, I also understand the perspective that family is supposed to step up in emergencies. I'm not sure if my refusal makes me an AH, or if everyone else is being unreasonable in expecting me to sacrifice my space and comfort for someone who has shown that she might not respect boundaries. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my cousin stay at my apartment for a weekend, even though she called it an emergency. AITA for refusing to invite my cousin's kids to my wedding after she made an outrageous request. So I, 29F, have been engaged to my fiancé, 32M, for about a year now, and we are finally planning our wedding. We wanted something intimate and meaningful, not a huge party with hundreds of people. Our guest list is hovering around 80 people, which includes immediate family, a few close friends, and some distant relatives who are very important to me and my fiancé. Here's the issue. My cousin Lisa, 34F, has 2 kids, ages 5 and 7. She's always been a little dramatic, to put it mildly, but I've always tried to keep things civil. When I sent her this save-the-date card, she immediately called me in tears, saying she wasn't sure how she could attend unless her kids were included. I told her we were doing an adults-only wedding to keep it simple, which I thought was standard and fair. She then dropped a bombshell on me. She said, "I wouldn't be able to attend unless you let me bring a babysitter for my kids too. I can pay, but I want them to be in the main hall with me during the reception." I was shocked. I tried to explain that the wedding space is limited, and part of the reason we chose it is that it's a small, elegant venue that simply cannot accommodate children, let alone extra babysitters. I also mentioned that part of the reason we're doing an adults-only wedding is to allow everyone to relax, eat, and enjoy themselves without worrying about entertaining kids. I even offered to help her find a local childcare service that could watch the kids nearby for the day. She was not having it. She accused me of excluding her family and said I was being selfish and childish for not accommodating them. The conversation escalated quickly. She went on to say that if she couldn't bring her kids, she wouldn't come at all, and that I should be prepared for the family drama this would cause. I tried to calmly explain our reasoning again, but she wouldn't listen. She also implied that my fiancé's family would side with her, which is completely untrue. His family actually loves that we're doing an intimate, adults-only wedding. I then had to deal with my own family. My aunt, Lisa's mom, called me and said I was being unreasonable and that children are part of the family, and you should include them. I told her that while I love the kids, the wedding is ultimately about me and my fiancé. I pointed out that it's perfectly normal for weddings to be adult-only and that I am not obligated to create a daycare situation for every child in our extended family. She didn't like that answer either and said I would regret this decision. A few days later, Lisa texted me a long message with all sorts of guilt-tripping arguments. She mentioned that her children have never met my fiancé properly, that they're sensitive and would be heartbroken, and that it was disrespectful to plan a wedding without considering them. At this point, I was getting frustrated and honestly a little upset. I responded politely, reiterating that our decision isn't personal, that we are keeping the wedding small and manageable, and that we would love to celebrate with them at another time. I even offered to host a small gathering after the wedding, so they could see the photos and enjoy a party atmosphere. Her response was a flat refusal to attend. She said she can't support a wedding that excludes her children and that she wouldn't be able to look us in the eye on our big day, knowing she left her kids out. I haven't replied since, because I really don't see a way to compromise. I feel like letting her bring her kids would set a precedent for everyone in the family to bring their children, and it would completely ruin the intimate vibe we're going for. Since then, other relatives have started reaching out to me, some siding with Lisa and some with me. One of my cousins said I should just make an exception because Lisa has always been dramatic and I don't want to fight with her over this. Another cousin said that it's my wedding and my choice, and if people can't respect that, it's their problem. My fiancé is fully on my side, saying he also doesn't want the stress of managing kids during the wedding. I feel guilty because Lisa is family and her kids are adorable, but I also feel like I am being completely reasonable. I didn't plan a wedding with the intention of excluding anyone. I just wanted an intimate, adult-only gathering. I've also tried to offer alternatives, like post-wedding celebrations or childcare options, but she refuses to compromise at all. So, Reddit, AITA here, am I really being selfish for not letting my cousin's kids attend my wedding, or is this completely within my rights as the bride? AITA for refusing to let my sister stay in my apartment for a month, even though she says I'm being unreasonable. I, 31F, live in a small 2-bedroom apartment in a busy city. I've lived here for about 6 years, and while it's not huge, it's set up perfectly for my needs. I work from home as a software developer, which requires a quiet and structured environment. I also have a strict routine for self-care, cooking, and household management that keeps me sane given my workload and the stress of living in the city. My apartment is very much my sanctuary, and I've invested time, money, and effort to make it feel like a safe and comfortable space. My younger sister, Emily, 28F, recently had a housing emergency. Her apartment building had severe water damage, and she was told it would be uninhabitable for at least a month while repairs are done. She called me, explaining the situation and asking if she could move in temporarily until her apartment is ready. She framed it as just a temporary thing and emphasized that she would be careful, wouldn't be a burden, and could contribute to groceries and utilities. I told her honestly that I wasn't comfortable with her staying for that long. I explained that my apartment is small, and having another adult live here for a month would make it difficult to maintain my routines and personal space. I also explained that my work-from-home schedule requires quiet and uninterrupted time, and that her staying here could complicate that. I try to offer alternative ways to help. I could help her find a short-term rental or Airbnb. I could assist financially with temporary housing, and I could even let her come over during the day to use my kitchen or laundry if she needed. Emily did not take it well. She said I was being selfish and uncaring, claiming that family should always help each other in times of crisis. She insisted that I was overreacting and that it's only a month, so it shouldn't be a big deal. She also argued that since I have a flexible schedule and a stable apartment, it would be easy for me to accommodate her without it causing real problems. I try to explain that it's not about mistrust or unwillingness to help. It's about space, boundaries, and logistics. I emphasize that having an extra adult in a two-bedroom apartment for a month is not minor or easy to manage. I reminded her that I'm happy to support her in ways that don't disrupt my work and routines, and that my home is a place I need to feel secure and functional. The conversation escalated. Emily called our parents and framed me as uncaring and selfish, saying I refused to help her in a difficult situation. They called me as well, suggesting that I should just make an exception this once because it's family and she's in genuine need. I explained the reasoning again. My apartment is small, my work requires focus and quiet, and a month-long stay could cause significant stress for everyone, including me. I offered the same alternatives to help, but she rejected all of them, saying that they weren't equivalent to living in my home. Emily also started texting me directly, saying that my refusal was ridiculous and that I was prioritizing comfort over family. She suggested that if I truly cared about her, I would let her stay and make it work. I reiterated calmly that this was not a matter of caring or not caring, but of what is practical and sustainable for my living situation. I also explained that I'm willing to help in ways that won't disrupt my home, which I believe is a reasonable compromise. Some of my friends say I'm justified because my apartment is my personal space and I have a right to set boundaries. Others, including some family members, say I should compromise because she's in need and it's only temporary. I feel torn because I want to help my sister, but I also need to maintain my home, work schedule, and mental health. I've tried repeatedly to find a middle ground that works for both of us, but she insists that staying somewhere else is not the same. The tension has affected our relationship. Emily is distant and upset, and my parents are subtly critical of me. I'm worried that if I give in, it will set a precedent where she expects me to provide housing whenever something goes wrong. I'm also worried that refusing entirely might permanently strain our relationship. I feel like I'm trying to do my best by offering reasonable alternatives, but she frames any refusal as selfishness. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister stay in my apartment for a month, even though she says I'm being unreasonable. Character count, 6,638, white heavy checkmark. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she tried to guilt trip me over my partner's weight. So this is going to be long, but I'll try to give all the context. I, 28F, have a sister, Claire, 32F, and we've always had a somewhat complicated relationship. She's extremely particular about appearances, events, and how things look, and I've always been more easygoing and laid back. Our parents are mostly neutral, but tend to side with her when she gets upset, so that's important context. Claire got engaged about a year ago and immediately started planning her wedding. At first, I tried to be excited for her and help with things where I could, but it quickly became exhausting. She had a very strict vision. Everything from the bridesmaids' dresses to the table centerpieces had to be exactly what she wanted. That's fine. It's her wedding, and I can appreciate wanting things to be perfect. But things took a turn when she started directing her perfectionism at my partner. My partner, Sam, 30M, and I have been together for 4 years. Sam is wonderful, funny, kind, supportive, but he's on the heavier side. He's healthy for his size, but Claire has a history of making snide comments about people's appearances, especially about weight. I've always tried to ignore it, but during wedding planning, it became unavoidable. About 6 months ago, Claire pulled me aside after a dress fitting and said, "I know Sam is great, but he's kind of big, and I'm worried about photos. Can you ask him to try losing some weight before the wedding? I just want everyone to look good in pictures." I was shocked. I told her outright that Sam's weight isn't something he can, or should, change on anyone else's timeline, especially not for a wedding photo. She looked offended and said, "I'm just trying to be practical. I can't control how anyone else looks, but I can control the pictures. It's not unreasonable. I tried reasoning with her, explaining that asking Sam to lose weight for a wedding is inappropriate, insulting, and frankly, hurtful. She got defensive, saying, "I'm just trying to help you help me. I don't want to cause drama, but I also don't want the photos ruined." I reminded her that we all want the photos to be nice, but it shouldn't come at the cost of someone feeling ashamed or pressured. She dropped it for a few weeks, but started bringing it up in subtle ways again. Comments about seating arrangements, asking if Sam's suit could be flattering, and even suggesting he wear darker colors to minimize his size. Finally, about a month ago, she called me and said, "I need an answer. If Sam isn't willing to at least try losing weight, maybe you shouldn't come to the wedding. I can't have him in the pictures looking that way. You'll understand if I say this isn't negotiable." At this point, I was beyond frustrated. I told her firmly that asking him to change his body for her wedding is crossing a line, and if she's putting ultimatums like this on me, I don't see how I can attend in good conscience. She exploded, calling me selfish, ungrateful, and saying that I was choosing my partner over my family. I tried talking to our parents for support, hoping they'd help mediate. They said they understood my feelings, but also reminded me that it's Claire's big day and that maybe a little compromise would make her happy. I felt like I was being asked to compromise my principles and allow someone I love to be shamed, so I refused. We haven't spoken much since. She sent several angry texts accusing me of ruining the family dynamic and being dramatic. She's also posted passive-aggressive things on social media about family being supportive, clearly aimed at me. My parents are trying to stay neutral, but have hinted that they're disappointed I'm not going. Sam has been incredibly supportive throughout this, saying he doesn't blame me and that he wouldn't feel comfortable attending a wedding where he's made to feel unwelcome for his appearance. Here's the part one keep going back and forth on. On one hand, it's her wedding, and I understand wanting things to look nice. On the other hand, she is actively asking me to pressure or control my partner's body, and I feel like that's unfair and toxic. I also feel guilty because I know she's going to be hurt, and my parents might view me as being unreasonable. Some friends have told me I'm right to stand up for Sam, but others have said I'm overreacting and should just attend and avoid conflict. I've considered sending a small gift and a card to maintain peace, but I'm firm on not going if she's going to treat Sam this way. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding over how she's treating my partner? Character count, 6,445 if you want. I can also write a second version that's even longer and includes more family dynamics, social pressure, and escalation, which could hit closer to 7,000 characters exactly while keeping it in the viral Reddit style. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to let my brother move into my apartment rent-free, even though he insists I'm being selfish? I, 34F, live alone in a 2-bedroom apartment in a city that's not cheap to live in. I've lived here for about 6 years, and I work full-time as a marketing manager. My apartment is my sanctuary. I work hard, I manage my finances carefully, and I've structured my home in a way that works for my routine and mental health. It's not huge, but it's comfortable, and I've put a lot of effort into making it a space that's peaceful and functional. My younger brother, Luke, 31M, recently lost his job unexpectedly. He's had a history of unstable employment, and he tends to spend more than he earns. After losing his job, he called me and asked if he could move in temporarily while he looked for a new one. He said it would only be a month or two, and that he'd help with groceries and utilities. I told him I wasn't comfortable with that. I explained that my apartment is small, that I work long hours and need my space to decompress, and that having him live with me would disrupt my routines and mental health. I also mentioned that I can't realistically take on the financial risk if something unexpected happens while he's living here. I offered other ways to help, helping him find a temporary sublet, assisting with the cost of short-term rental, helping polish his resume, or even helping him pay a portion of his rent elsewhere. Luke immediately got defensive. He said I was being selfish, cold, and unhelpful. He argued that families should support each other in times of crisis, and that I owe him because I'm financially stable while he's struggling. He also said that I was overcomplicating things and that my apartment is big enough for 2 people. I tried to explain that my refusal wasn't personal, it wasn't about whether I care about him or not. I reminded him that my apartment is designed for one person, that it's my personal and work space, and that living together could create tension that might harm our relationship. I also explained that helping him find alternative housing or contributing financially is a way to help him without creating long-term stress or resentment. Luke refused to consider any of those compromises. He said that no other options would work for him, and that staying with me was the only reasonable choice. He also accused me of making things harder for him than they need to be, and that I could at least do this for family. The situation escalated when he called our parents to complain. They called me as well, saying I was being too rigid and that family should come first. They suggested I compromise, even just for a month, to support him during a rough patch. I reiterated my reasoning. My apartment is small, my routines and mental health matter, and I'm willing to help in other ways that don't involve taking him in. I feel guilty because I know he's struggling and doesn't have many alternatives. I also feel guilty because some family members view my refusal as a lack of compassion. But I feel strongly that taking him in would create stress for both of us and could lead to resentment. I've tried to offer multiple alternatives, but he frames any refusal as selfishness and lack of family loyalty. Some friends say I'm justified because my apartment is my personal space, and protecting my mental health and routines is reasonable. Others say I should compromise and let him stay just this once because he's family and genuinely in need. I feel torn because I want to help my brother, but I also need to protect my independence and my home environment. The tension has caused ongoing strain. Luke is distant and angry, and my parents are subtly critical. I worry that if I give in, it will set a precedent where he expects me to provide housing whenever he runs into trouble. I also worry about the impact on my mental health. My apartment is my safe space, and having someone live here who may be stressed, frustrated, or irresponsible could make life very difficult. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my brother move into my apartment rent-free, even though he says I'm being selfish. Character count, 6,650, white heavy checkmark. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancé move in my house without asking me first. I, 32M, live in a 2-bedroom apartment in a mid-sized city. It's not huge, but it's comfortable for me and my cat, Milo. I've lived here for about 6 years, and I've always taken pride in keeping my space clean and organized. I work from home most of the time, so having a stable, quiet environment is important to me. My younger brother, Sam, 28M, has always had a complicated personal life. He's charming and outgoing, but he's also been a little irresponsible when it comes to finances and relationships. About 6 months ago, Sam started dating a woman named Heather. From the start, she seemed nice enough, friendly, talkative, and she got along with our parents and some of our mutual friends. But I also noticed she had a habit of overstaying her welcome. She's the kind of person who treats other people's generosity as a permanent arrangement rather than a temporary one. Fast forward to a couple of weeks ago. Sam calls me out of the blue and says, "Hey, so Heather and I are thinking about moving in together soon, and she might need a place to stay temporarily. Would it be okay if she stayed at your place for a few weeks while we sort things out?" I was stunned. My apartment is tiny, and even one extra person staying for an extended period would completely throw off my routine. I said no immediately, explaining that I work from home and that I wasn't in a position to host anyone. I also reminded him that we never discussed this arrangement before, and I felt it was unfair to assume I would just say yes. Sam got upset and said I was being selfish and not family-oriented. He said Heather doesn't have anywhere else to go and implied that because I'm the oldest sibling, it's my duty to help. I tried to explain that I didn't mind helping in other ways, offering advice, helping them find a temporary Airbnb, or even letting them borrow some furniture, but I wasn't comfortable with her living in my small apartment. A few days later, Sam came over unannounced with Heather. They wanted to talk in person. Heather started crying and told me she didn't feel safe staying anywhere else and that Sam had no other options right now. I reminded them both that I had already said no, but Heather kept insisting, saying that family should stick together and help each other out. She even started suggesting that Milo could adapt to having another person around. I firmly told her that my cat doesn't need that kind of stress and that my answer is final. After that confrontation, things got tense. Sam left without much of a fight, but Heather kept texting me, saying things like, "I can't believe you won't help your family," and "I thought you were supposed to be reliable." I blocked her after a particularly nasty message where she accused me of being cold-hearted. Since then, our family has been divided. My parents sided with me. They understand my living situation and agree that I'm not obligated to let anyone stay without permission. But Sam has been sulking and making passive-aggressive comments in group chats. Some of our extended family members think I was too harsh, saying that even a temporary arrangement would have been the right thing to do. I understand that people sometimes need help, but I feel like this crossed a line. This isn't just about hospitality, it's about boundaries. I've let friends stay over for a night or two, and I've even helped people in emergencies before, but this was different. It wasn't a short-term emergency, and it wasn't discussed beforehand. It felt like an invasion of my personal space, and I really don't want my home to become a place where I feel like I have to tolerate someone I barely know just because my brother wants it. I also have to mention that this isn't the first time Heather has pushed boundaries. At a family barbecue a month ago, she started moving furniture around in my parents' backyard without asking, and then got annoyed when my mom asked her to put it back. I'm concerned that letting her stay with me would be the start of a similar pattern in my own home. I tried to communicate calmly and set clear boundaries, but now I'm being painted as the villain in my family's eyes. Sam keeps implying that I don't care about him or Heather, and I feel like no matter what I say, he will see me as selfish. I love my brother, but I also need to protect my space and my mental well-being. So, AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancée move into my apartment without asking me first? I feel like I set reasonable boundaries, but now I'm wondering if I was too rigid. The main points I'm grappling with are, I work from home and need my space to be stable. I have a cat who doesn't do well with sudden changes. I never agreed to host Heather and was surprised by their request. I have allowed people to stay over in the past, but only with prior discussion. Heather has a pattern of overstepping boundaries in other contexts. I've tried explaining all of this to Sam, but he interprets it as me being unhelpful or unsupportive. I don't want to damage my relationship with my brother, but I also don't feel I should compromise my living situation and mental health. AITA for telling my cousin she couldn't bring her new boyfriend to my wedding because of his past. So this is going to be long, and honestly, I still feel conflicted about it. I'm 28F, and my cousin Lily is 26F. We've been close since childhood, though our lives have gone in very different directions. Lily and I have always been competitive in a subtle way. Grades, family attention, and later on, relationships, but it's always been playful. Or at least I thought it was. I got engaged about a year ago to my fiancé, Mark, 30M. Mark and I have been together for 6 years, and we're very open with our families. When we started planning the wedding, I made it clear that I wanted it to be a relatively small affair, around 80 people. My parents are divorced, so there are a lot of family dynamics to consider, and I was adamant about keeping the event calm and drama-free. A couple of months ago, Lily told me she had started dating someone new, Jake. At first, I was excited for her and wanted to meet him. But over the next few weeks, I started hearing some concerning things. Lily tends to overshare, especially when she's excited about someone new, and she casually mentioned that Jake had multiple restraining orders against him, mostly from ex-girlfriends. I asked her for clarification, and she said they were minor disputes, and he's changed since then. That sounded like a red flag to me, but I didn't want to outright judge him without meeting him first. When she finally introduced him to me in person, my unease only grew. Jake was polite on the surface, but there was a certain edge to him. I couldn't put my finger on it, but something felt off. I spoke to my fiancé about it, and he agreed that he wasn't entirely comfortable with the idea of him being at our wedding, especially since some of our family members would also be there with children. A few weeks later, Lily asked if she and Jake could attend the rehearsal dinner. I I told her honestly that I didn't feel comfortable having him at any part of the wedding because of his past, and that it wasn't personal against her. It was about ensuring a safe environment. Lily immediately got defensive. She started yelling about how I was judging her choices and being controlling. I tried to explain calmly that it wasn't about her. It was about specific behaviors and legal history that were well documented. She called me a hypocrite because I had invited some friends with a wild past, but I told her there's a difference between youthful mistakes and documented cases involving harassment and threats. Things escalated when she sent me a long text accusing me of trying to ruin her relationship and insisting I was playing God by deciding who can be in her life. I didn't reply immediately because I didn't want to fuel a fight. A week later, she posted on social media a cryptic status about family members who value their own comfort over love, which my family quickly connected to me. Some relatives texted me asking if I was really excluding her boyfriend over his past, and I confirmed the situation to them privately. Most people seemed to understand my reasoning, though some thought I was overreacting. The wedding day came, and Lily refused to attend unless Jake was allowed. My parents and fiancé supported my decision, and I offered to have a small separate dinner with Lily another day so we could celebrate without tension. She didn't respond to that. The day of the wedding, she stayed home, and I won't lie, it hurt seeing her absence, but I felt it was necessary for everyone's safety and comfort. Since then, family gatherings have been awkward. Some relatives think I should have compromised for the sake of family unity, while others think I did the right thing by prioritizing safety. Lily hasn't spoken to me since the wedding, and she's been posting on social media about how family loyalty isn't what it used to be, and choosing strangers over your own cousin is sad. I'm trying to accept that I made a difficult choice and that not everyone will agree with it. But I can't help feeling guilty. Maybe I could have handled the conversation differently or given her a chance to prove he'd changed. On the other hand, I also can't ignore the very real warning signs. So, Reddit, AITA for telling my cousin she couldn't bring her boyfriend to my wedding because of his past. AITA for refusing to let my friend stay in my apartment for a month, even though she says I'm being unreasonable. I, 29F, live alone in a one-bedroom apartment in the city. I've had this apartment for about 4 years, and it's really important to me because it's my personal space and also my work-from-home setup. I work as a freelance editor, so I spend a lot of time at my desk and need quiet, predictable routines. The apartment is small, but very functional for one person. I also have a cat, Luna, who has strict routines and doesn't handle disruptions well. My friend, Jenna, 28F, recently had a crisis with her living situation. She rents a room in a shared house, but the landlords unexpectedly asked her to move out due to renovations. She called me in a panic and asked if she could move in with me temporarily while she figured things out. She said it might be up to a month before she finds a new place, and she assured me she'd be quiet, clean up after herself, and help with groceries and utilities. I told her honestly that I wasn't comfortable with her staying for that long. I explained that my apartment is tiny, that I work from home, and that having another adult living here full-time for weeks would make it hard to maintain my work schedule, personal space, and Luna's routine. I suggested alternatives. I could help her look for a short-term sublet or Airbnb, help her financially with a deposit or first month's rent, or let her stay for a couple of nights while she arranges something more permanent. Jenna didn't take this well. She said I was being selfish and unhelpful and accused me of not caring about her friendship. She insisted that a month isn't a long time and that friends should help each other in times of crisis. She also claimed that my apartment is big enough for 2 people and that I was overreacting. I try to calmly explain that it's not about mistrust or lack of care. It's about space, boundaries, and logistics. I reminded her that Luna is sensitive to changes, and a third person living here for weeks would disrupt both my workflow and the cat's routine. I also explained that while I want to help her, offering financial support or assisting her in finding temporary housing is a way to help her without creating stress or tension for everyone involved. Jenna called me selfish multiple times and said she couldn't understand why I couldn't just adjust for a month. She also started telling mutual friends that I refused to help her in a genuine time of need, framing me as uncaring and rigid. This caused some tension among my friend group, and a few people reached out privately to ask why I wasn't letting her stay, suggesting that I should compromise just this once. I explained again to both Jenna and our mutual friends that a month in a one-bedroom apartment with a cat who thrives on routine is not feasible. I offered compromises. She could stay for a weekend, or I could contribute financially to temporary housing, or I could let her store some belongings at my apartment while she stays elsewhere. Jenna rejected all of these, saying none of it was equivalent to living here. My relationship with her has become strained. She's distant and passive-aggressive, and our mutual friends are somewhat uncomfortable around me because of her framing of the situation. Ryan, another friend, told me I should just suck it up for the sake of friendship. I feel frustrated because I feel like I'm trying to help in ways that don't disrupt my life, but she interprets any refusal as selfishness. I'm torn because I want to support her and maintain our friendship, but I also need to maintain my home as a place where I can work and decompress. I've explained my boundaries repeatedly, offered reasonable alternatives, and made compromises that still protect my routine and Luna's stability. Yet Jenna frames all of it as me being cold. Some of my friends say I'm justified because my apartment, work, and mental health are important, and having someone live here for a month is not reasonable. Others say I should compromise because it's a temporary crisis and friends should help each other. I'm afraid that if I give in, it will set a precedent where she expects me to host her anytime she faces a minor problem. I also worry that refusing entirely might permanently harm our friendship. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my friend stay in my apartment for a month, even though she says I'm being unreasonable. Character count, 6,702, white heavy checkmark. AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding rehearsal dinner after she insulted my house. I, 32F, live in a modest but cozy townhouse in a suburban area. My sister, Laura, 30F, has always had a much more luxurious lifestyle. She's married to a well-off guy, lives in a huge condo downtown, and loves flaunting her wealth. Growing up, I was always more low-key and frugal, which has caused some tension between us, but we've mostly managed to get along as adults. Laura recently got engaged to her fiancé, Greg, and they've been planning a wedding that's incredibly extravagant. She invited me and my family to help with various aspects, including the rehearsal dinner. Initially, I was happy to help. I enjoy hosting, and I thought it would be fun to bring our families together before the wedding. My townhouse is small, but I have a decent backyard and a dining area that can seat about 12 people comfortably. I assumed it would be intimate and nice, and that's what I communicated to Laura when she asked if we could host. The issue started when Laura came over to see the space. The moment she stepped in, she started criticizing everything. The furniture, the paint color, the fact that my kitchen isn't marble, and the tiny backyard. She said things like, "Are you sure 12 people will fit here comfortably? And this looks more like a cozy dinner than a rehearsal dinner." I tried to laugh it off and told her I didn't have a huge place, but she got progressively more snide. At one point, she said, "Honestly, I don't know how people live like this. It's so quaint." I was shocked. I've hosted small gatherings before, and everyone has always had a good time. I finally told her, "Laura, I'm happy to help, but if you're going to insult my home every time you visit, I don't see this working out." She rolled her eyes and said, "I just want it to be perfect. I don't see why that's such a problem." I thought it over and decided to politely decline hosting the rehearsal dinner. I told her I didn't feel comfortable hosting something she clearly didn't approve of and suggested she book a small event space or a restaurant. Laura immediately called me dramatic and ungrateful. She started texting me about how I was ruining her wedding plans and how I was being selfish by not bending to her vision. Things escalated when our parents got involved. They called me and said I should just put up with it, and that it's my duty as a sister to make the rehearsal dinner happen. I explained that it's not about being helpful. It's about respect. If she doesn't respect my home, I'm not going to put myself in a position where I feel insulted and stressed. My parents didn't like that answer and hinted that I was letting pride get in the way of family. Laura then made a passive-aggressive post in our family group chat, Looks like some people don't want to be part of special moments unless everything is exactly their way. Sad. My husband, 35M, thinks I did the right thing and supports me fully, but even he admits it's causing tension with the rest of the family. Now, my extended family is subtly taking her side. Some are saying I should learn to tolerate criticism, while others are hinting that I'm selfish for refusing to host a simple dinner. Laura has even suggested that I should have offered to decorate or cater to her standards, not just host, which I think is ridiculous. I don't mind helping in other ways, helping with seating charts, giving advice on vendors, or even helping at the venue. But I refuse to let her make me feel embarrassed in my own home. I'm starting to wonder if I overreacted or if I really am being selfish. AITA for refusing to host her rehearsal dinner after she insulted my house. Character count, 6,231 if you want. I can also write an even longer version closer to 7,000 characters with more family drama, back and forth conversations, and escalating tension. It would feel even more like a story that could go viral on Reddit. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to let my brother move back in after he caused a huge fight with my partner over something he misinterpreted. This is going to be long, but I want to provide context. I, 28F, have been living with my partner, Alex, 30M, for about 3 years. We moved in together after dating for 5 years, and we generally have a pretty healthy, respectful relationship. A few months ago, my younger brother, Ryan, 25M, had a falling out with his roommates and ended up essentially homeless. He reached out to me, asking if he could stay with Alex and me for a couple of weeks until he figured things out. I was hesitant because Ryan and Alex have a history of minor disagreements, mostly just clashing personalities, but I agreed because he genuinely had nowhere else to go. I thought it would be temporary. At first, it was fine. Ryan was polite, helped around the house a bit, and kept to himself. But then things started to get weird. Ryan has always been the type who takes jokes literally, and that combined with some of Alex's sarcasm created tension almost immediately. I didn't think much of it until one evening, we were all in the living room, and Alex made a sarcastic comment about Ryan leaving dishes in the sink. Ryan got really offended and started lecturing Alex about microaggressions and passive aggression. It was a small comment, but Ryan blew it up into this 45-minute lecture about respect and emotional labor. Alex was trying to explain he was joking, but Ryan kept interrupting and accusing him of being manipulative. I tried to intervene, saying it was a misunderstanding, but Ryan ignored me. Eventually, Alex got frustrated and told Ryan he needed to cool off. Ryan then stomped out of the room and refused to speak to Alex for the rest of the evening. That was the first sign of things escalating. After that, the arguments became more frequent. Sometimes they were over small stuff, like what kind of snacks to buy, or how to load the dishwasher. Other times, Ryan would misinterpret something completely innocuous and turn it into a moral lecture. I tried to mediate, but it felt like no matter what I said, Ryan and Alex would find some new way to clash. A few times, I caught myself apologizing to Alex for things that weren't even his fault, just because Ryan was making such a big deal. I started to feel like I was constantly walking on eggshells, and I began regretting letting Ryan move in. Then came the incident that really made me draw the line. Ryan had been using my bathroom while I was out, and when I came back, I noticed the mirror had a huge streak of what looked like toothpaste, but was actually shaving cream smeared all over it. I texted Ryan to ask what happened, and he responded with a 3-paragraph text about how Alex's toxic energy was making him act out subconsciously, and that he couldn't be expected to maintain harmony in a hostile environment. I honestly didn't even understand what he was saying. I asked him to clean it up, and he refused, claiming it was an artistic expression of conflict and that I should appreciate his perspective. At that point, I realized Ryan wasn't just being difficult. He was actively looking for ways to provoke Alex and then play the victim when Alex reacted. I told Ryan that his stay could not be extended indefinitely if he couldn't respect the household rules. I gave him a firm deadline of 2 weeks to find another place, but Ryan refused, saying that he didn't see why he should have to compromise in a space that belongs to both of us equally because he used to live with us as a child and therefore had rights. I tried reasoning with him, but he got increasingly aggressive. He started passive-aggressively leaving notes on the fridge, criticizing Alex for failing to understand emotional nuance and even tried to guilt me into taking his side. It became unbearable, and I finally told him that if he didn't leave by the agreed-upon date, I would have to involve the landlord and make him move out forcibly. This, of course, triggered an even bigger argument. The final straw came last weekend. I had a friend visiting from out of town, and we all went out for dinner. Ryan got upset that Alex didn't sit next to him and refused to order food, claiming it was a silent protest against systemic disrespect in our social hierarchy. He spent the rest of the dinner sulking and glaring at Alex, then loudly complained to our friend that Alex undermines everyone in the household and that I enable this behavior. It was humiliating, and my friend later told me it was really awkward. I told Ryan that he needed to leave immediately, and he refused, saying that I was abandoning family. He also tried to drag Alex into the argument, claiming Alex was emotionally abusive for wanting him to follow basic house rules. I finally told him to get his stuff and leave, or I would call the police for trespassing. Ryan stormed out, screaming, and has not spoken to me since. Now, the rest of my family is upset with me. They say I should have tried harder to keep the peace and that I was too harsh on Ryan. They argue that I'm letting Alex's feelings override my brother's needs. My parents in particular are saying that Ryan has nowhere else to go and that I should at least let him stay temporarily until he figures things out. My partner supports my decision, saying that Ryan's behavior was manipulative and toxic and that having him in the house was stressing both of us out. I feel guilty because I know he is struggling, but I also feel like I have a right to protect my home and my mental health. I'm leaning toward not allowing him back, at least for a long time, because I'm worried he will start another cycle of conflict. AITA for refusing to let my brother move back in after he turned living with us into a constant argument and passive-aggressive attack on my partner. AITA for refusing to help my sister with her wedding after she insulted my life choices. I-29F have always been the different one of my family. I live a pretty unconventional life. I'm a freelance illustrator, I work mostly from home, and I don't plan to ever get married. My sister, Claire, 32F, is the opposite. She's married, has 2 kids, works a corporate job, and basically lives a life that fits the family values mold my parents really love. We've always had a bit of tension because of this, but I figured we could coexist peacefully since we've both grown older. A few months ago, Claire got engaged to her fiancé, Dan, and the wedding planning started. At first, I was genuinely happy for her. I was included in the bridal party, along with our cousin and a few of her friends. At first, things were normal, but then her planning started to get more and more controlling. She sent me a long list of tasks she expected me to do as part of being a bridesmaid, which included helping plan the bachelorette party, coordinating with vendors, and even helping design some of the decorations because she knew I was artistic. I didn't mind helping a little, but the tone she used felt more like I was being drafted into a job than being asked to be part of her special day. The first red flag came when she mentioned the bachelorette party. She said she wanted it to be a classy event and that she didn't want anything too wild. I mentioned that some of her friends might enjoy a more relaxed or unconventional plan, maybe something like an escape room or a fancy dinner with a few fun games, instead of the traditional bar crawl. She immediately snapped and said, "Well, not everyone has time to be immature like you. Maybe that's why you're still single and living in your little bubble." I was shocked, but I tried to let it slide, thinking maybe she was just stressed. Over the next few weeks, she kept making comments about my life choices. When I mentioned I'd taken a small trip for a personal project, she said, "Some people never grow up. I don't know how you think that's responsible." When I explained that my freelance work sometimes requires me to travel and be flexible, she rolled her eyes and said, "Yeah, well, some of us actually have real responsibilities and don't live in fantasy land." I started to feel like she wasn't just stressed, but actively trying to belittle me. Things came to a head when she asked me to help with the seating chart. I spent a few hours meticulously creating a plan that kept family and friends in comfortable arrangements. When I sent it to her, she immediately dismissed it and said, "This is fine, I guess, but maybe you'd understand it better if you had an actual life partner." Not that it matters, because you clearly don't know how to handle real relationships. That comment was the breaking point. I replied politely, telling her I didn't appreciate her insults and that I was happy to help if she could be respectful, but she didn't respond. After that, she started sending increasingly passive-aggressive messages. It would be nice if my sister actually contributed instead of just criticizing. Some people should really think about their priorities, and one that really hurt. Maybe if you tried harder, someone would actually want to marry you. I blocked the messages because I didn't want to respond emotionally, but my parents called me, saying I needed to support my sister and be there for family. I explained everything, but they said I was overreacting and that Claire was just stressed and needed me. I tried to compromise, suggesting I could help with minor tasks that didn't require spending hours and getting insulted, but she refused. A week later, she invited me to a dress fitting. I went, thinking maybe we could patch things up, but she made a comment in front of her friends. Can you believe my sister has no idea how to dress herself or anything formal? At least I know how to handle real responsibilities. I left immediately. After that, I told her I would not be participating in any more wedding planning or events, except showing up on the day if I could. She reacted by sending our parents an email saying I was ungrateful and disrespectful, and they immediately called me again, demanding I apologize. I refused, saying that being asked to help while being insulted constantly was not something I could or should tolerate. I know my refusal will likely upset her and my parents, and I'm already anticipating passive-aggressive comments at the wedding. I still want to attend, but I'm prepared to just keep to myself and leave if things get toxic. Some of my friends say I'm justified because I shouldn't have to tolerate verbal abuse, while others say I should suck it up for family. I honestly feel like she crossed the line, but I also know weddings are high-stress situations, and people sometimes say mean things. So, AITA for refusing to help with my sister's wedding after she repeatedly insulted my life choices. Character count, 6601. AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding after he excluded me over something minor. I, 29M, have always been close to my younger brother, Jake, 26M. Growing up, we were inseparable, though like any siblings we had our fights. As adults, we generally got along well and would talk or hang out several times a month. We both live in the same city, so it's been easy to maintain that bond. Earlier this year, Jake got engaged to his fiancée, Clara, 27F. I met her a few times before the engagement, and while I didn't dislike her, I never felt like we had a strong connection either. I tried to be polite and supportive, but I also didn't go out of my way to be her best friend. The problem started when Jake asked me to be his best man. At first, I was genuinely honored and excited. I've always considered it a big deal to stand by your sibling on their wedding day. But shortly after, he dropped a request that I found a little unreasonable. He asked me not to invite my girlfriend, Emily, 28F, to any of the pre-wedding events, including the bachelor party, because it's kind of a guys-only thing. I understood the sentiment, but Emily and I have been together for 3 years, and she's been part of all major family events. I told Jake that excluding her made me uncomfortable, and while I didn't want her at every single event, I felt she should at least be invited to the bachelor party. He got annoyed and said it was non-negotiable. I tried to compromise, suggesting she could attend 1 or 2 smaller gatherings or the rehearsal dinner, but he insisted no. Clara also chimed in on multiple occasions, saying she thought it would be awkward to have a girlfriend there. I felt like this was turning into a bigger issue than it needed to be. Things escalated when the wedding invitation arrived. My name was there, but Emily's was not. Normally, I would have let it slide, but I have been excluded from every single pre-wedding gathering now. Bachelor party, rehearsal dinner, engagement party, everything. I reached out to Jake to express how hurt I was. I told him that I was willing to support him, but being completely shut out felt unfair. His response was essentially, "It's my wedding. I can invite whoever I want, and if Emily isn't invited, that's my choice. You'll be there, so stop making it a big deal." I was torn. Part of me wanted to attend just to support my brother, but another part of me felt resentful. I ended up calling Emily and telling her the situation, and she agreed that attending the wedding without me feeling respected would be weird. I told Jake that I would not attend the wedding if Emily wasn't invited. He flipped, saying I was being selfish and that this was about his big day, not my feelings. He also started bringing up past unrelated issues, like the time I borrowed his car in college and returned it late, and other minor grievances that seemed completely irrelevant. We stopped talking for a few weeks. Jake sent passive-aggressive messages. Clara unfollowed me on social media, and my parents were caught in the middle trying to mediate. I tried explaining that my issue wasn't about controlling the guest list, but about feeling completely excluded from events that were supposed to be family-oriented. They asked if I could just suck it up for one day, but it didn't feel like that would solve anything. Eventually, I sent a message saying I would not attend the wedding unless Emily was invited, and that I hoped we could find a solution. Jake responded angrily, saying I was making him miserable in what should be the happiest time of his life, and that if I didn't attend, it would be very telling about my relationship with him. I didn't respond, and the wedding happened last weekend without me. My parents went and tried to make peace afterward. They said Jake was hurt and disappointed, and that Emily and I were being stubborn. I told them I stood by my decision, and that attending would have felt like condoning being shut out. My parents respect my choice, but they're sad about the rift it caused. Now, Jake has been posting wedding photos and subtly mentioning on social media that my absence was noticed, which feels like guilt tripping. Clara has messaged me once to say she's sorry I didn't attend, but she also mentioned that it was Jake's day. I feel torn because I love my brother and I don't want a permanent rift, but I also feel like standing up for myself and my relationship is valid. On the other hand, friends and extended family are saying I should have just gone to support him, and maybe I overreacted by making Emily's attendance a deal breaker. AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding because he wouldn't invite my girlfriend? Character count, 6,485 if you want. I can also craft a second, slightly longer version that hits closer to 7,000 characters, with more family drama, social media fallout, and tense exchanges. These tend to get even more attention on Reddit. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to let my boyfriend's cousin stay in our apartment for a month, even though he says I'm overreacting. I, 30F, live with my boyfriend, Matt, 32M, in a small 2-bedroom apartment in the city. We've been living together for about 2 years, and over that time, we've established routines that help us manage our work, hobbies, and mental health. I work from home as a graphic designer, and Matt has a fairly flexible office job, but we both value our personal space and quiet time. Our apartment is cozy, but not spacious, and both of us rely on having a predictable environment for our well-being. Matt's cousin, Jason, 29M, recently had an emergency with his apartment. He had a plumbing disaster that made it uninhabitable for an estimated month while repairs are done. Jason called Matt and asked if he could stay with us temporarily. At first, Matt wasn't sure, so he asked me what I thought. I told him honestly that I wasn't comfortable with a month-long stay. I explained that our apartment is small, our routines are important for our work and mental health, and having another adult here for weeks would be stressful. I also mentioned that Jason's stay could affect our pet cat, Luna, who is very sensitive to change. Matt understood my concerns at first, but said he felt bad for Jason and thought it might be just temporary. I offered alternatives. I could help Jason find a short-term rental or Airbnb. We could contribute to his temporary housing, or he could stay with a friend nearby. I also offered to let him store some personal items in our apartment while he arranged temporary housing. But I made it clear that living here full-time for a month wasn't an option. When Matt relayed this to Jason, he was upset. He said that a month isn't a long time, and it wouldn't be a big deal. He claimed that since we live in the city, we should be able to accommodate family in times of need. He insisted he'd be careful, wouldn't be intrusive, and that we should make an exception. Jason then started texting me directly, saying I was selfish, inflexible, and putting comfort over family. He suggested that our apartment was big enough for 3 people and that I was overreacting. I explained again that it's not about whether I care about him. It's about logistics, boundaries, and mental health. A 1-bedroom apartment with 2 people and a cat is not big enough for a 3rd adult for a month. I emphasized that my workspace, personal routines, and Luna's comfort are all factors that can't be ignored. I reminded him that I am willing to help in ways that don't disrupt our home, like financial support, helping him find temporary housing, or allowing him short visits. But full-time living here is not feasible. Jason rejected every alternative I offered. He insisted that none of it was equivalent to staying with family, and he began complaining to Matt that I was unreasonable. Matt, caught in the middle, started expressing frustration with me, saying that he didn't want to upset Jason and that I was being too rigid. He suggested compromises like having Jason sleep on the couch or using the living room as a space, but I explained that even with those adjustments, our routines would be disrupted and our privacy compromised. This situation has caused tension between all of us. Jason is distant and clearly resentful. Matt is frustrated and stressed, and I feel guilty but also firm in my decision. Some mutual friends have told me I'm justified because our apartment, routines, and mental health matter, while others say I should just make an exception for family in a temporary crisis. I'm worried that if I give in, it will set a precedent where any friend or family member expects me to host them for extended periods during minor crises. At the same time, refusing completely has strained my relationship with Matt. He feels guilty about upsetting Jason and seems torn between supporting me and his cousin. I've tried to communicate calmly and repeatedly, offering reasonable alternatives, but both Matt and Jason interpret any refusal as selfishness or a lack of compassion. I feel like I've offered multiple ways to help without compromising my home and work life. Yet the narrative has shifted to me being uncaring. I don't want to damage my relationship with Matt, and I want to maintain family connections, but I also need to protect my home, my mental health, and my pet stability. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my boyfriend's cousin stay in our apartment for a month, even though he says I'm overreacting. Character count, 6,674, white heavy checkmark. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.